Hello, everyone. How are you today? Today, in this show, we're gonna talk about tokenomics, and the special guest is Vlad. Vlad, always a pleasure to talk with you. Could you introduce yourself? Tell
Yes.
us more about you and who you are, please.
Uh, I mean, you already know I'm saying it for everybody else. We talk every day. Basically, everything that has to do with research and data in Zilliqa is done by me. And also, a big part of my day is spent working with Kevin to develop tokenomics for a very wide range of stuff that we do at Zilliqa, some public, some very far from it. And yeah, we what we have in common is that we've been in crypto for many, many, many years, and we grew with the space. So we're a lot more native than what you would be used to in terms of public communications from a crypto side. And yeah, we're
Absolutely
both
agree.
absolute dorks. That's about it. We play video games. We do crypto stuff most of our days.
Great presentation. Could not say better. So for the today topics about the tokenomics, I think we are really the best person for talking about that. And at the same time, every day I'm receiving new question about tokenomics. How does it work? What does it implicate in? And also, what is a good tokenomics? But what is a bad tokenomics? And for that, we're gonna review it today. So the first question is, what are tokenomics?
Ah,
Haha.
so it's a new thing actually, and it only exists thanks to crypto and thanks to the decentralized nature of blockchain, it being permissionless, immutable, and all that. Uh, Essentially, if you think of an economic model like how we buy and sell stuff from stores, we use money. Money is issued by central banks, and the way central banks are operating has not really changed that much, even in the past couple of 100 years. The Dutch and then the Swedish and then the English invented more or less the system that we still use today, and the Americans perfected it. The base idea of it is you print money, give it out to people, and they just use it to transact. The thing is, your control starts and stops there. You can't really do anything else. And here's where blockchain comes in and tokenomics come in. You because because tokens can exist sort of in a void and be owned by anybody else. It's much easier to mint them, to burn them, and to use them in many more different ways than you can use simple money. And this whole thing has become sort of a new half science, half art, uniting economics with tokens, making tokenomics that is typical to crypto, to games, to GameFi, to DeFi, to metaverse-related projects, to fan tokens, etc. There isn't really any good way of doing it. There are a lot of bad ways of doing it, but there are definitely good directions, and we're going to talk about all of those. This is the most scientific explanation of tokenomics that you're going to get from me, honestly. I'm not. Otherwise, you have Investopedia.
I think it's a good resume. I will also add like a tokenomics is a general economy. It could be reflected in many ways. But in crypto, as you said, it's provide many more utility and use case, and we can use it. And also, let's say, how to explain impact on it by the minting, the burning mechanism. We can improvise on it. So I will say, tokenomics is it's an economy that's change all the time. A good resume. So let's go for the second topic. A tokenomic that is sustainable in the long term. How do you see it? That's a good question.
Wow. Um, Step one: don't be a Ponzi scheme. I guess. Um, there is this sort of there is this image that people have in their heads about crypto and generally about money, that it's something that somehow it works, and some people high up there, they know what they're doing when they built the system. uh, there isn't really, and this isn't doesn't only go into crypto, there isn't really any quote unquote sustainable economic model. The closest we have come is the free market model that we live in, which we see has a lot of faults. It has a lot of problems, but it's by far the one that worked best. Ideally, what you would want is to have people buy what they need when they need it, not be careless with money, be responsible with what they buy, and to have a sort of fixed supply that never changes. There are several problems here. First of all, is value doesn't exist in a void. A certain thing, a certain service, an object, a fruit, a vegetable, a token in a game, a skin in a game. They don't have an intrinsic value that comes from the heavens and says, this AK skin is $15, and then it's a general rule. Everything is worth as much as people are willing to pay for it. And because there are 8 billion people on the planet and many things and services, these things always oscillate in terms of price. It's very hard to create a system that keeps this thing sustainable or linear. For tokenomics, though, there have been experiments, and I will say something that is going to be very controversial, and I'm sure Kevin is going to have something to say. Even though it's now not being used anymore, I think, in a sense, rebasing was sort of on the right way initially. The idea to have several tokens for one thing, and they mint and burn each other in retrospect in order to better in order to more accurately see the supply needed. I think it was in the relatively good direction. I think it'll come back. I think it'll be very different in the future, but that is something that didn't really exist, and it wouldn't be possible in nature.
I agree with you on many points. I mean, the beginning, I absolutely agree. Everything what you say, it's totally true. For the burning mechanism with many tokens, you got a good point, but because you create some loop of economy to basically sustain the project, to be sure that the token, let's say, have some value by literally, let's say, destroying some other token or minting new token to add more value on the same tokenomic, or mostly the one from the project. Personally, I think, let's take an example. We could talk about Luna UST, in fact, because they had a good burning mechanism. But what happened really to Luna? Because, let's say, some malicious people started to find where in their tokenomic there was an issue. If you literally short too much and create an infernal loop of burning, it can excel, and at this moment, by the fact that you are burning more too much token, and it will remint to recalibrate the pool. In fact, it's created the infernal loop that's led to what we know, the UST crash and the Luna crash. So there is no perfect tokenomic in the burning and minting process, but at least, let's say, it depends on what people are thinking about that and how they're using it. If they are malicious, there is always a way to exploit it. And that's where you try to protect from that and prevent from this event.
You know the meme with how can you say something so controversial yet so brave? Yeah, there were like $2.6 billion of sell pressure on UST, which made it to DPEG, which created the infernal loop that minted Luna into hyperinflation. However,
The project was a good idea.
Back in May, I think. Yeah, I think it was in May of last year, of 2021. Luna and the Terra ecosystem went through the same event that actually killed them, but on a much smaller scale. Back then, the market cap of Terra and Luna was also much smaller, but it worked. There was a lot of, if I remember correctly, sell pressure on UST. It did depeg by 2.5 cents or something to that extent. Don't quote me on it. But the minting and burning relationship with Luna It actually worked.
Absolutely.
One weird thing that was born out of rebasing and that we see, and Olympus is more responsible for this model than anybody else, is a thing that is pretty cool and that is everywhere in DeFi now. And I'm talking about liquid staking.
True.
You realize that controlling the supply of something is only one feature. And when I say control, I don't mean you have the evil blockchain people controlling what people do with their money. Just maintaining it at a level that is, let's say, more or less accurate to its own market cap, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
It's an interesting model to do. When we talk sustainability, I mean, ideally, even if you build a DEX or you build a money market protocol, you build a game, you build anything, for it to be sustainable, you would want not for the price of the token to stay flat, because that is absurd when people have that expectation. Things move in the economy and things change value. We see now with hyperinflation that everything changes value.
True.
What you want is for the price to be more or less around its perceived market cap as market goes up and down. Exactly. So if the overall crypto market is at, I don't know, $1 trillion, you want your little project to be more or less there in terms of price where it was a week ago, respective to the same market, and for people to be able to use it, to use your token or your tokens with low fees, as fast and efficiently as possible in your own ecosystem. Inflation happens anyway. We will touch on this later. So let's just save these sweet inflation and deflation topics for later. But that's the closest you could get to being sustainable. Don't be a pump and dump on launch. Don't have your sole source of liquidity being other people that come in. Okay, actually add some services and some values that internally add more money into the treasury, either via fees, either via APIs from borrowing or lending, or by minting new stuff that people actually want. I'm talking about skins in games, for example. There are ways to do this, but there's very few people talking about it.
Absolutely agree.
If I could say one last point on this topic.
Sure. Go in.
It's the final one. This is a personal theory, and from what I see, it's what I see when I look at the market. As a parallel to what I'm going to say there was this period in time in the late 70s, I think, when video games started becoming popular. But I'm talking about the big arcade games where you went in a bar with coins and
the flippers.
Yeah, exactly. And you had a couple of you only had a couple of games back then. You had like Pong, you had the Duck
Space
Hunt,
Invader,
the Space Invaders, etc. And then something like 99.7% of all games were clones of those three.
True.
Now you would think, why don't people just make different games? And because that will attract the attention from new people that want to try new games instead of the same three ones. The answer was incentive. It was, why complicate yourself to write new code in something that was very much a new technology, a new science, see if it works, backtest it, when you can simply copy code from one game, change the color scheme, and then sell it as something else to different companies that just put arcades everywhere. It printed money. That thing, I see more or less the same phenomena happening in crypto. The incentive to create bad games and bad projects is still, in most of crypto, the norm. Unfortunately, mostly in gaming. You could very easily copy and paste any white paper and basic tokenomic model from anywhere. They're all public, as they should be. True. We want decentralization at Zilliqa. We're very serious about that. And you can easily copy or even commission for a couple $100 a simple Unity store asset game that does, I don't know, it's a clone of something else. You put that out, you have access to the entire world via the internet, even if you get like 1% of people that ever saw your game buy your token. That is your extra liquidity as a dev, essentially. The incentive to actually put in work and think of new tokenomics model is very, very rare, very loose.
True.
That's why me and Kevin read about this stuff all the time. But that's where we are. We are at a not close to a precipice where bad games are still here and good games are still in the background. With good tokenomics, nobody figured it out well in games. There is an area where you actually are incentivized to think of smart, complex tokenomics, and that is DeFi. Even in the bear market, there are protocols popping up with super interesting tokenomics and super interesting economy loops that actually make a lot of sense. And I can't wait for the next bull run to see what stuff will come up.
Absolutely. That's true. You absolutely mentioned like the arcade. Everyone was forking their own game of arcade to
Yeah.
sell it to other arcade. And in fact, it's the same in DeFi. Many forked, how many Home fork we saw during this bull run, how many Tom Finance fork we saw too. So instead of forking, trying to create something new is not easy. And of course, it's risky. But when it's a success, everyone want to fork you. That's
Very close to sounding like something else. But no, I don't see. I absolutely do not see an issue with forking and take another project. The whole idea behind blockchain is to be transparent, open, permissionless. Copy it as is. Do your own thing with it. Change it only in terms of marketing if you want. Add to it. That's what freedom of information should be.
Absolutely. And shall we go in the next topic, actually,
Yes.
because you mentioned it, this decentralization of token, or mostly also a project. Or it
Yes.
can be also a blockchain, everything, because let's say mostly in the tokenomic model, the decentralization is the main part of the project into crypto.
Yes. Decentralization. Wow.
Shall I?
Uh,
Do you want me to
you
start a
start.
bit about that?
You start. I'm tired of hearing my voice. I'm not that interesting.
So, what is decentralization? That's mean basically, imagine you have 50 million token, or let's take the Bitcoin as an example, because everyone loves Bitcoin, and mostly Bitcoin is quite well decentralized. How Bitcoin becomes so decentralized? By first allowing everyone to get incentivized to mine Bitcoin. When you mine a Bitcoin, you could get some Bitcoin. And then basically with this, it was a proof that you effected your mining, or let's say a proof of work, as we say. But in fact, everyone could do that. Not only the big companies, not only, let's say, I don't know, like corporation, but mostly like you, me, Vlad, whoever is listening, you could do the same. And that's a good example of what a good decentralized is, because everyone have the same, let's say, power. Of course, not power to mine the Bitcoin, but the power to execute an action on this blockchain and to get some of this token. The more decentralized it is, the better it is. Why? Because that's mean you don't have one entity who have most of the total supply market and can dump on everyone and control also the token price. As an example, and this is scary, but if some people own most of the supplies, it could make some, let's say, discussion in between to try to dump altogether the token and opening some short position on some exchange. And at that moment, who gonna lose? All the token holders. And who gonna win? The guy who own most of the token. So decentralization is a super important part into the distribution of the token. But also, it's need to not be too much chaotic. That's mean basically everyone own a certain amount of the token, and for the new people that want to buy the tokens, there is no liquidity, and no one is sharing the liquidity for, let's say, for providing to the decentralized exchange to buy this token. And also, if you have a government's vote with all this decentralization, and everyone start to, let's say, create some groups where they decide to all vote for some, let's say, government's votes that could impact their interest in this token, that could be bad. So I think decentralization is great, but it should not be chaotic, like too much spread too.
Yeah,
What do you think about that?
I agree with your points, especially about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, by all metrics that are trying to quantify decentralization, by far and large the most decentralized assets there is. It was started with good intentions. It's working with good intentions. I appreciate Zilliqa a lot for also pushing towards decentralization. However, there's something I want to say. It's not a binary choice, centralization and decentralization. It's a spectrum. It's a long spectrum, and you slide along it. There are many areas in which you could that are infinitely more advantageous to be decentralized, but there are areas where, yeah, having a single point of decision could be faster. um, Overall, most of the stuff that we use every day is very centralized. Our politics is centralized, our banking system is centralized. It's very difficult
Social
to.
media centralized.
Social media is very, no, it's true. They work on the same servers. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's companies that own some servers, and yeah, have your data. It's very important, especially as we move towards an age where, at this stage, privacy became a luxury, and we're moving towards an age that will be even more hyper digital than it is today. I think blockchain can empower people to actually own their own data, to actually own their own money, own their own assets. Sure, there are two sides to every sword, and as we always hear, how crypto is the butt of all evil, and how money laundering was invented after Satoshi minted the first Bitcoin, because before that didn't exist. It also did a lot of things like allow. It also did a lot of things like allow people to use money when governments wanted to censor their bank accounts. But yeah, it's we can't. The thing with decentralization is that it has to be kept. It's sort of it's a paradox of it. If you give a million people one apple each for them to be equal, and then you let them do their thing, you come back after a couple of weeks or months, and inadvertently you will have a couple of people that will own most of the supply, and then most that will own close to nothing.
True.
If you have, it has to be enforced. It's paradoxical. It's like freedom that has to be enforced. And if you look at tokenomics model, there are different models that we looked at and we saw that we liked, where it's much more efficient to encourage people to hold less assets. And I'm talking about models like, there was this sort of experimental way of doing, what was it called? Delegated proof of stake,
Yeah.
like ARC and Lisk. I'm talking more specifically about ARC because they had an interesting idea many years ago to, whereas you just delegate your votes to a node, but there were max caps, and the delegates were always randomly cycled. So stuff that actively encourages you to not hold above a certain amount. It was an interesting direction. Still very new. I don't really see any other example for it in games today or in DeFi. GMX's model is relatively interesting in that direction, because they do have a token which essentially encourages you only to buy it and strongly discourages you to sell it, because it gives you rewards in AVAX and ETH. Talking about GMX's token, the VEGMX. So that is a very interesting model as well. Very, very, very interesting. It's a case where you very strong, you bribe decentralization essentially.
True.
It's an interesting direction.
I absolutely agree. You mentioned most of the protocols that I like, some of them who are invested. I will not mention who, but the two first you mentioned. And absolutely agree with you. It's kinda, I don't know, I will go too much in detail and I cannot
Please
finish that.
do.
So no. No, yeah, no, GCL is super well decentralized. In fact, it's super interesting to go into this project because we are still moving forward and looking for more, let's say, utility we could give to this token. And the fact that it's so well decentralized, I've never seen that in any other crypto. Have to admit, it's crazy. And it's so well done that it's forced the respect for that. But the thing is, how to basically give many different utility to a token that is so well decentralized and trying at the same time to not get, let's say, people who could own most of the supply. But so far, it's absolutely not the case. So we are still looking for giving the best utility on this token. I cannot disclose more information because we are still a lot working on it, but no worries.
It's a
Soon you're
top
gonna,
priority, Gizo.
yeah.
Um,
So shall we move into the actually what I just mentioned, the utility for holders? Let's say
yes,
the multiple utility you need for holders of the token
yes.
into
Just
a
one
tokenomic.
final, yes, just one final point I wanted to make on centralization and decentralization. Uh, if you look at projects that started off centralized, more or less centralized, and are moving towards being decentralized, it's actually not the worst idea because if you only have a small group of people that you give them all the decision, if they have good intention, they can actually build a cool product. I'm thinking, for example, of Ave's mission to slowly give more and more power to the DAO up to the
Mhm.
point where eventually, yeah, there won't be a need for a CEO and stuff like that more than a foundation. Also, the Ethereum Foundation, they did a very good job with ETH 2.0.
True.
Extremely boring update, which is what it was supposed to be. Uh, it's you need sometime focus like this, and sometime focus like this comes from having a centralized entity that makes decisions that can make decisions faster and
Mm.
that can actually cut through the red tape of discussing absolutely everything.
Absolutely agree. Uh, so shall we move for the next subject, the multiple
Utility.
utility for holders? So I think I will start on this one because
Go
for
ahead.
me, it's really something that I'm looking all the time into a token. When I review a tokenomic, I'm mostly looking for the tokenomics. So of course, the repartition, how is it decentralized or not, who is owning most of the token supply, but also for the utility. What's interests me into the utility is that's mean basically when you're holding the token, you expect either some gain from it, not necessarily in price action. I never mentioned the price action, but mostly like what can I do with this token? Simply. If I burn it, can I get more? If I use it somewhere in the shop, what can I do? Like as an example, if I stake it, does it help the network or something? And also, let's say, can I get some airdrop maybe with this token? Do I get some reduced fees if I do a swap on this platform as an example? Like FTT as an example with FTX. You get less fees when you hold a certain amount of FTT token on FTX. It's not actually a financial advice or not, and every company I'm mentioning, it's simply because I have a respect for all the crypto space and universe. But mostly what I want to mean by that is like the more utility you have a token, the more, let's say, you will not want to sell it. It's what for me is the most important. If I just receive an airdrop of a token and I see there is no utility, most of the time people will sell it. I mean, it's normal. But if there is plenty of utility, I will really hold it for a long time.
Yeah, the eternal utility debate. Um, Everything around buying or selling a token is a very, very, very short and intense period of game theory.
True.
Not only 3 3 and 9 9 from the good old Wonderland days, but as long as everybody believes a certain asset, a certain game token, a certain skin, a certain farm token has value, more people will buy, which in turn will move the price up. If fewer people believe that it has value, it goes down to zero.
True.
Um, that is that being said, if you do want to be if you do want to be either profitable or to get the best available skins in a game or the best NFTs, by its very nature, you have to be I don't want to say malicious, but you have to do the opposite of what everybody else is doing, and therefore you have to use them for your profit. You have to use them as your extra liquidity. It's the nature of the free market economy. You want to ideally have a lot of you have to have a lot of supply of something and then sell it as price goes up.
Absolutely. But
Um,
I just wanted to mention, like, Curve token for me is really a great token because it provides many utility. I will not mention about the price because me, I never cared about the price of Curve as an example. But the whole ecosystem they created around one protocol is crazy. It's a AMM, it's a DEX where everyone can create a liquidity pool. And at the same time, if you hold a certain amount of Curve token, basically the incentive you get into the liquidity pool, you get it at the maximum. So basically, it's forced you to lock your token for 4 years to get more incentive. So it's a bet in the long term. But at the same time, basically this token, the Curve token, if you stake it on different other application, you can get more, let's say, revenue, or you can share basically the revenue you should get in the Curve pool with other protocols that want to use your liquidity into your pool to increase their own revenue and at the same time to give you more revenue to yourself. So from one app, now there is a full ecosystem around Curve. And it's even funny because for people who are in DeFi, we name that the Curve War because everyone wants to control Curve. Because the more token as a DAO, let's say Curve is a big DAO, the more token you own, the more, how to explain, the more inflationary or deflationary you can get on the Curve token by voting for increasing, let's say, the incentivize of Curve token in the pool or voting for reducing it in another pool. So it's really a Curve war, in fact. And
bribe
that's
wars,
cool.
but
Exactly.
it's an extremely good model. Holding
Absolutely.
escrow tokens, you can't force people, and you shouldn't force people to buy or to sell something. Uh, what you can do is you can strongly encourage them to behave in a certain way. So they participate in your DeFi platform or in your game or whatever, and they get a token. And you can say, my man, it's yours to sell. You can do whatever you want with it. You can sell it, or look at all these other things you can do with it. Curve understood this very early on and said, sure, you can sell Curve, take profit from it, or you can lock it for a period of up to 4 years and get increased APY. That is also funded from the platform itself. These
And
type
it's
of
explainable.
tokenomics are what me and Kevin are looking at. Systems that aim to be sustainable and that aim to hold. This model works for both whales and for smaller accounts. You can be,
Absolutely.
in terms of APY, you can have the same more or less stability and percentage profit if you have $5,000 than if you have $5 million put in Curve.
Absolutely.
And look at it, like you said earlier, all the ecosystem that's sprung around it with Convex, stuff like
Stake
Yearn,
DAO,
yeah,
Blackpool. There
Bribe
was
Bribe Wars. It's good competition.
Paladin. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's good competition. It's good competition, and it brings in buy power. You always have buy power fighting with sell power. Most projects have a lot of sell power because people want to have money that they can use against them, and most tokens are
absolutely.
just a tool to transfer that. That's why
On-
it's complicated to build
I'm
systems like this.
I'm thinking, but that's true actually. What is a good utility also for a token is, as we said, it's created an ecosystem. But the fact with Curve, it's deployed on many blockchains, so many
Yeah,
other ecosystem, and it's helping them to grow.
yeah,
What's
and they
most of
help it turn in exchange, which is a good loop.
absolutely. I will say also most of the people right now see each blockchain as competitors. And a lot of people forget the fact that we are all crypto. We are not competitors. We are like a big family with different opinion, different vision of different utility with different job, let's say. But the fact is, when you see Curve, being implemented on Polygon, on Avalanche, on Arbitrum, if I remember,
Yeah.
Optimism, Phantom, everywhere. In fact, it's helping each ecosystem. I'm not saying that tomorrow Curve will be on Zilliqa, don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is like when you see a good token and basically the way it's become so big that it wants to participate in every other chain to help them to grow, it's great because it's helped everyone to grow, in fact.
The base idea is that, of course, you want to be top 10 coin, etc. But in reality, every blockchain wants, every protocol wants two things: wants users and wants TVL, liquidity.
Absolutely.
I don't see anything wrong with that necessarily. If you can also add missions of decentralization, of really, really good tech on top of that, that is even more awesome. But yeah, we Curve helping all of the layer ones that you mentioned bring liquidity and users is awesome, and also they in turn help Curve because they bring users inside them. And this is what a good model looks like. It's just like in real life where it's not a problem at all that the guy that is growing vegetables can sell them to the store sells them to people because it distributes them. The guy has what to eat, store makes money, farmer makes money. That is what a good economic sustainable economy loop looks like. And it's very hard to do in crypto, but I mean, God knows we're trying. We are pushing it hard. A lot of stuff we can do in utility. You can the one other point would be to try and make people exchange your token for other tokens in your own ecosystem that they in turn give other benefits. This is more hypothetical, but it does exist in some cases, and I'm talking about what initially Uniswap tried to do, and I'm talking about I mentioned earlier GMX, or of course Curve or Convex itself, where they're trying to
Absolutely.
offer reward to various mini loops inside. Very interesting.
I mean, you mentioned Uni, and that's true. It's, let's say, the biggest competitor at the same time to Curve, because both are trying to bring a new vision for every users to access to the tokens they want super easily with few clicks. And that's a good thing, actually. What now I'm thinking is look at this bull run. How many tokenomics different we saw? How many great projects we saw? How many failed projects we saw also? We need to mention them because there was many failed projects. Some of them had the best idea but didn't succeed because, well, either hack happened or some other issue could have emerged during the bull run. But
Innovation is messy. Creating new stuff is messy.
exactly. So in fact, right now we are every crypto project are in bear market. No one is doing like 10,000 x% every day. But the stuff is, we are all building, in fact. We are trying to all build the future of the tokenomics for tomorrow, the future of the next great projects that could literally help people, that could benefit to all the crypto universe, but also in real life. And I think the next bull run is gonna be amazing for seeing what kind of great utility happen during this kind of period where we are all building.
The most encouraging thing for me is that, like you said, I look at this bear market now, and even though it's not in the mainstream as much as it used to be when it was in the bull market, and most of the people that just want to make a quick buck are already gone, there are everybody is building new stuff in
Exactly.
games, new utility for NFTs, DeFi, especially DeFi is a cauldron for innovation. The tokenomics of like a year from now, I can't wait to see. We are also building our own things that are quite, we see them as quite or as quite different and original. We'll see what you guys think about it when they're going to be public. But I am curious to see if rebasing will come back, under what form it will come back. I'm curious to see other ways of doing treasury policy for projects. I'm curious to see whatever other weird liquid staking loops can happen with a model that, I don't know, just explodes in value and that attracts a lot of users. Oh, there's so much that can be innovated in crypto when you combine it with like economic models, and just so few people know about it. It's such a new science. You don't really have any preparation for it. The best preparation that me and Kevin have is the preparation
Experience.
we have is that's what you can have with
Experience.
experience in crypto. Actually, no amount of uh, I don't know, PhD in economics or anything else will make you understand these things or like actually build compelling new ones. Very curious to see where the space will go.
You mentioned something true, but you need to live basically the token to understand where it's failed. You need to be as an investor, but at the same time as a person who invested into many different projects. Personally, I will be honest, I got wrecked in many projects. I
Same.
literally got wrecked. But from this experience that was painful for me, I learned what is good and what is bad. And it's a long process. And I think every builders face
Yeah.
at this moment where they got wrecked and they try to create a better product, or literally they think, okay, what didn't work, what can I, let's say, update or upgrade or mostly change that could make it better. And I think there's nothing better than this. For me, it's the best. Let's say I'm really curious for the next bull run because, of course, many new projects gonna emerge. We will see if we see again Zero X Sifu or other drama, but it's
Yes,
going to be funny.
he launched his new thing like 4 days ago. I'm not gonna
Really?
say his name. I don't want to shill it. He did. He did.
Okay,
I'll
don't chill
type
it,
it
don't
to
chill
you
it.
in
We're
chat.
gonna have we're gonna have trouble, but what I want to mean is like every bull run is it's really an experience that's I wish to everyone to live it, even if it's successful or painful. In both way, it's something new that's you cannot, let's say it wasn't crazy in every way possible.
I'm very grateful for crypto in general because yeah, it changed my life and it gave me a purpose and a meaning and something new. And I can build cool stuff with cool people like Kevin.
True,
That's
absolutely
that's
agree. And at the same time, let's say you are financially kind of independent because you can use crypto everywhere now. Me
yeah.
personally, living in Switzerland, I see that I can pay in the McDonald's with my Bitcoin. That's
Lugano, I think.
crazy. I love it. I love it. So yeah, the world will change soon. It's just a matter of time in the good way, I hope.
Hopefully for the best.
Exactly. So guys, it was a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed the session with us. Wish you the best and see you soon.
See you soon, everybody.